you've got two ends of the string. Basically, you've got the sharp end and the ball end. The ball end goes into the bridge, and at this stage you can just put the string sort of quite far in, and then you take your bridge pin and pop the bridge pin in to the hole. Don't push it down, you just want it there loose. And what we've got to try and do now is try and fish the ball end so that the pin doesn't actually come up. You can see at the moment, if I'm putting that string up, what wants to happen is the ball end wants to pull the bridge pin back out. So we need to fish, and the way you do that is by holding onto the bridge pin with one finger slightly above where it would normally be, and then pull the string quite, you know, not violently but quite positively to get the ball end to actually fall to the side of the pin. So now you can see the pin's in there and it's still sticking up, but it definitely doesn't want to come out. And that's basically the key to it. It's quite simple. Once you've got that concept down, then it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so we've got the bridge pin in the other end, the string's anchored in okay. You still always have to be careful when you're tuning up that the ball end doesn't try and force the pin out. But this end, all we do is you put the string through the hole on the tuner on this type of post. Take about a tuner's worth, maybe a little bit less. Back again to the tuner, so you've got some slack. String comes round, just make a bend in it. Underneath, and its string looks like that. Then if you hold the tension on the string, the ball end should stay where it's supposed to. And down this end, all we do is just wind it up. As soon as the string starts to bend around the post, a bit like on an electric guitar, same idea at this end, just pull that string round so it locks off, and then just tighten the string around the post, make sure it goes down the post. And there we go, that's the first one. And the other end, if you take a look at the other end of the guitar where the bridge pin is, the bridge pin has stayed in fact, because we made sure that the ball end had actually slipped to the side, so it's not coming out, it's not going anywhere. And that's basically all there is to it. Alright, so you can see inside the guitar now. I'm just going to put the second string in, and you're going to see obviously the ball end of the string inside the guitar. Hopefully you'll be able to see what's going on. So I'm going to feed the A string through, and you can see the ball end there, and basically the bridge pin's now coming through, as you can see, and the ball end is there. If I was to just let that go, normally it could pull out the bridge pin, but if you can try and see this, I pushed the bridge pin in. I'm just going to fish the ball end down the side of the bridge pin. There you go, you can see it's actually gone up against the bridge plate. So now that's locked in place adequately, so it's not sitting, the ball end doesn't sit on the end of the bridge pin, it's actually pushed to the side, and all the bridge pin does is essentially blocks the hole for the escape of the ball end through the actual bridge.
So let's do this whole thing again. I've already got the other end of this string, this will be the A string, into the bridge on that other end. I've got my hole in the post right here lined up going that way. This end through the hole, all the way through. I'm going to pull it taut so I know how much slack to give it. I'm going to pull it back about this much. Okay. Use my finger as a stop. I've got the right amount of slack right here. I'm going to keep it from sliding through. I'm going to take this end, the tail end, go towards the inside of the headstock, which is that direction. Okay. It's going to go underneath the playing part of the string right here. I'm going to pull it tight. Once it's tight, I'm going to move it straight up so there's a little bend in it. Now, while using my right hand to keep that bend from getting weird, take my string winder, start turning what looks like to the left, but we're tightening it. And as I do that, I'm going to push down on this so that I'm underneath the subsequent windings. Just going to keep going, make sure it's in the slot. Tune it up to any kind of pitch, just so there's tension on it. We'll tune the guitar later. So now let's take care of these pesky ends right here. If you don't have a wire cutter, what I used to do, just when I was a kid, I'd wind them up, I'd do that so they don't get in the way. But it's a pain, so let's cut it. Invest in some good wire cutters, or just some normal ones. These are pretty heavy duty. I use them all the time. They work on bass strings as well. So we want to clip it, but we don't want to make it sharp so that we're going to destroy our fingers if our hand brushed over this, which can be a problem a lot of times. So remember, our string is going straight up. I'm going to take my clippers. This is the flat end. And I'm going to move it over here. And it's not a very good angle, but I'm just going to clip it. Okay? So now what doing that does, again, I'll get a closer angle here, is you can see, oh, focus. So that was the end that we cut off. And if we look at it from the side, see how it doesn't stick above the post. So I can do this all day and I'm not going to destroy my finger. You know, if you leave it a little high, you can totally stab yourself. And I've done it many times. I've bled a lot from doing that. But if you cut it really close to the post right here, underneath the top of it, you shouldn't have any problems. Here's another look at what that knot looks like. And you can see what I was talking about, how the string gets sandwiched in between the winding and the post. You know, right there. So there is literally no way that this is going to loosen on me because it's held against the post by the winding. It creates that little knot right there. That's the reason why I like doing it this way. There are other ways to do it and they seem to hold okay, but once in a blue moon, I've had the other ways loosen on me, especially on the treble side. You may disagree with that, but that's been my experience. And like I said, when I'm stringing up a guitar for a guy to play in front of thousands of people, that's the last thing I want to happen. So that's the reason why I do it this way and have that knot there. It does make pulling off the strings a little bit more of a pain, but in the long run, I think that's worth it for me. I'll show you this other method in just a second. So this other method, more or less, start off the same. So, feed my string through. Okay, pull it taut, same as before. It's really the same amount of slack. So if you want to gauge it this way, about that much, stick it through. Okay, that's good enough. Now this other method is you just simply hold the string in place. You don't do that knot thing I was talking about, and you just start winding. I don't prefer to do it this way, but just to show you guys that, you know, it does work. I don't mind doing it. This is my guitar that I just play around with. So we just start turning it. You're gonna, again, tune it the same way. You want to hold this end, the slack, so it holds in place. And as you turn the peg, it's gonna naturally make that bend in the string that I did by hand before. So again, we want this end to go over, or this end to go underneath the windings. Okay, so we just kind of hold it down into place. We keep winding it up. All well and fine. Make sure it's through the nut slot correctly. Okay, now we've got, you know, tension on it. There will be a little bit of difference in how we clip the end this time though. So instead of the string sticking straight up, sorry about the focus, it's sticking out the side. That's fine. We'll just use our clippers again, and I just tend to go pretty close to the end. What I don't like about this method is now you run the risk of stabbing yourself. You can take your pliers and move that down or up or whatever. It's just kind of more work. But that's how this method works. It pretty much is the same. They work okay. I just don't prefer it. I will say that this method I think is probably more common. If you pick up a guitar at a store or whatever, your friends, it's probably going to look a little bit like this. I think that's because it's easier to understand. But like I said, I don't prefer it for the reasons I stated before. If you want to do it this way, that's totally fine. The great thing about music is that you can kind of do things however you want to do it, and as long as it works for you, that's great. But I think I made a case for why that method is a more secure way to tie the knot. Okay, so now what about our treble side? this side of tuners. This is going to be backwards. You can't do it the same way because the string will end up being on the opposite side, or you'll turn it the wrong way. But it's the same thing, just backwards. So here we go, feeding the thing through there. Now I'm going to go back to my preferred method right now. So the string is tight. I'm going to give it some slack again, about this much. Okay. Now, instead of going that direction like we did before, we want to move this direction. So that's why I called it the inside of the headstock. So we're on this side now. We're going to move this slack end to the inside of the headstock and underneath this string. So here we go. Inside the headstock, underneath this string. We're going to pull it tight. Okay, once it's tight, we're going to bend it so there's a bend going straight up. Now at this point, I changed hands from what I was doing before, so I'm going to use my winder in my right hand instead of my left like before. Now the direction we're going to turn this time is, let's see, if I get my hand out of the way, is this direction. Okay, so from our perspective, the player's perspective, it's going to be clockwise, where this was counter. Depends on how you want to think about it, like most things in life. So we're going to turn this, what appears to be clockwise from our perspective. Same rules apply. Just want to keep going. I know that's not the best angle, maybe that's a little better. As we go, we're going to move this underneath the windings. Keep going. Oops. Make sure that's in the nut slot. Keep going until we have a note. Okay, so now that's tight-ish. I'm going to clip it again with my clippers. I get as close to the bottom as I can, like that. Okay, I'm not going to stab myself because I used that method. So same, but different, just opposite. Let me show you the reason why we want our windings to go underneath. I'm the type of person that I just don't like being told what to do. I want to know why. Okay, so it will depend greatly on guitar. Now this guitar doesn't really matter so much. The reason is because this headstock is at an angle to the fingerboard. So our fingerboard follows this nice straight curve, and then here at the headstock it goes bloop, it goes down like that. We call that break angle. So that's the angle from going straight right here to down. Gibsons, this Yamaha, tend to be guitars that have 3 tuners on each side. They're going to tend to have this type of break angle. So it's not as big a deal. We want a break angle. Reason is because we want to make sure that the string is making a note, or hitting this front edge of the nut. If you can imagine that if this end were up like this, or maybe even just kind of flat across, there wouldn't be a lot of force on this nut to make sure we have a nice clean note. So that's why it's important to have this downward angle. So the reason why we put the string underneath is it increases that angle. Like I said, on this guitar, not a huge deal, but on Fenders or those types of guitars where the headstock is pretty straight across, you want to make sure you wind things down. And especially on like on a Strat or Tele or something like that, the D and the G. I will tend to put a lot more slack on the D and the G to get those to go down farther. I'll do probably another video at some point showing what I mean by that. That's also why Fenders have string trees, the little thing that the string goes underneath and then goes to the tuner to create that break angle. But anyway, I just wanted to explain that. We want that break angle. So let's do this one more time in real time, just so you know. So I'm turning this until the hole is going that way. I'm going to take this end of the string, put it through the hole all the way, pull it tight, give it some slack. So, yep, about that much again, holding with my right hand. Now again, since we're on the treble side, we're going to take the non-playing end of it and go inside the headstock, so this direction this time, underneath the rest of the string. Okay, pull it tight, give it a bend by pulling it straight up. I'm going to switch hands, kind of hold this in place with my left hand. Take the string winder with my right hand, turn it this direction. Make sure that as I'm turning it, I'm pushing, whoops, that's why, pushing down on the string so that as I wind it, we're creating the winds going down. Sure goes in the nut slot. Keep going until we have a note. Excellent. Take our clippers. Being careful not to clip the other string. Clip that one so I don't stab myself. And it's really that easy.
And obviously last thing is always to stretch the strings in after you've tuned a guitar up with new strings. It's always a good idea to give them a good stretch in. Be careful not to break them, obviously. And then with a tuner or something similar, and then give them another pull in just so the guitar settles down. And that's it. That's basically all there is to restringing an acoustic guitar.